Welcome to the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast, transforming the way people think and work so their organizations can thrive. Well, hi, everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Ed Kless, and with me today is Yusuf Moolla. Yusuf is a certified internal auditor who has over 20 years of experience in data and assurance. He has worked for both Deloitte and KPMG, leading audits and data projects globally, and is the co-founder of Risk Insights, a specialist advisory firm that focuses on using data for internal and performance audit. He is the author of the Data-Confident Internal Auditor, a practical step-by-step guide. Welcome to the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast, Yusuf Moolla.
Ed, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Well, first off, Yusuf, why do you do what you do?
So I generally just love data, and saw quite a while back that there was a significant opportunity to better use data for assurance purposes, and the combination of using data and helping others use data and getting better outcomes in assurance matters is what keeps me what made me start doing it, and what just keeps me energized and makes me want to continue to do it.
Well, tell me a little bit about your book, The Data-Confident Internal Auditor, a practical step-by-step guide.
Sure. So we created this book because we saw and have been seeing for some time the significant potential and underuse of data for assurance professionals and by assurance professionals. And so one of the main challenges, and this would apply to a whole range of particular areas or professionals way beyond just internal audit or performance audit, is that there's a range of different words that I use, lots of jargon, AI, machine learning, big data, etc. And what that has resulted in is a lot of inaction, so fear-driven inaction, or just not knowing where to start or how to go about using data better, or using data within the jobs that everybody is doing. And so we thought, why not simplify that, make it really simple for auditors in particular with this book, but obviously it would apply to a wide range of people, to where to start step by step from almost a zero base. Pretty much anybody with a little bit of knowledge in Excel should be able to pick up the book and go with it, and go from that sort of zero base or very low base to a level of confidence in using data without stepping too far outside of the comfort zones as we go through, but with a significant uplift through to the end. So that was the idea, and the hope with the book is that it does enable a whole range of people to use data themselves and overcome that fear.
So I heard an interesting definition that I want you to react to, and that is that we've heard this term data analyst for years and years and years, and data analysts are folks who try to get answers from the data. But then there's a newer term is data scientist, and the data scientist, I'm told, is someone who develops new questions for the data. What do you think about that?
Oh, that's interesting. So it's interesting for two reasons, I suppose. One is that the term analyst and analysis, we actually spoke about that just recently, is so broad that there's so many different things that can be assigned to it. So even things like finding new questions to data can quite easily fit into the title analyst. What we've been seeing in terms of the practical application of the word or the phrase data scientist is those are people that typically go beyond what are basic analysis techniques into what would be more advanced statistical and machine learning techniques. So that's the way that I've been seeing it, but the way that you've described it is quite an interesting definition for sure.
And how can this help? One thought I had on this is as we move to more multi-tenant type systems, even small companies are going to be able to benefit from this because companies like Sage and others will be able to have the data available for all of their customers, for example, to try to look for abnormalities in it, not just in the one company, the one organization. So I guess as we get into these larger data sets, does it become harder or easier to find the abnormalities?
So the difficulty or the challenge, if you like, usually stems from, to be quite frank, lack of imagination. So the more we can think about the challenges that we have and not think about the challenges that we have as businesses or as professionals, as opposed to what challenges there might be with data, and then go to data to try to find the solutions, the better off we'll be. When you talk about multi-tenant, one example that comes to mind around that is, simple things like when we look at our own data, we can identify potential blockages or other risks as it relates to things like supply chains. But when you go into multi-tenant and you're able to access data from multiple different organizations or systems at once, you can start getting a much better picture of what's going on there. And so with the expansion of the scope and the ability to go beyond that limited small set of data, there's definitely potential. But like I say, the challenge will be our ability to apply our imagination in order to find and solve those problems, I think.
And why do you suppose there is so much confusion and jargon around the notion of data? Is it because it's a guild that people like to keep secret, or is it just that's the way things have evolved?
Probably a bit of both. Look, the reality is that most progressive data-focused people do want to share and don't want to, sort of keep things for themselves. I think part of the problem, without making anybody cross, but part of the problem is that there are many large organizations, large consulting organizations, etc., that benefit off that fear. You can't do this yourself. You need to call us in to do it. Big data is a big scary word. AI is a big scary thing. When the reality is so far away from that, most people can do this themselves. I'll tell you that this book my mother picked up, and my mother is a retired English teacher. And I said to her, "How did you read that book?" And she said, "Well, actually, it wasn't that difficult. I may not necessarily get all of the concepts in there, but I can see that this is applicable." So I think that the fear created by protectionism may exist, but I don't think it's necessarily data professionals that have created that. I think it's more marketing spin, really, that's resulted in that fear.
And Yusuf, we have an exit question that we ask all of our guests, and that is, who is a hero of yours, and why are they a hero?
So, this is the hardest question ever. But many people in my family, so my mom, my dad, etc. But if I had to pick one, I'd say that my paternal grandfather. So he was a businessman in apartheid South Africa. Or started a business, a number of businesses in apartheid South Africa, and had to overcome many challenges around doing that. And I think that generation were quite entrepreneurial and were able to get around many large bureaucracies and challenges. And I always look to that and think, how can I replicate what he'd done without losing integrity? He never lost his integrity in business, and I think that's quite important. The other thing that he was able to do at the same time back in the day was start a faith-based community, or be involved in the start of a faith-based community, and the equivalent of Sunday schools back then, and doing all of that all at the same time while sort of trying to fight against what would be oppression, not necessarily being a freedom fighter, but having to do all of that within an environment that wasn't very friendly. I think is was quite an achievement, and he was able to sustain a fairly large family successfully and happily. So that's the sort of really close to home thing that I think about when I think about who a hero might be.
And lastly, Yusuf, how can somebody contact you?
So easiest is via our company website. That's riskinsights.com.au, riskinsights.com.au, or on LinkedIn. My handle is just IN/YUSUFMOOLLA, my name.
All right. Yusuf Moolla, the author of the Data-Confident Internal Auditor, a practical step-by-step guide. Thanks so much for being a guest on the Sage Thought Leadership Podcast.
Excellent. Thanks, Ed.
Review and subscribe by searching your podcast player of choice for Sage Thought Leadership Podcast.